Okay, so this is part 3. Yeah, 4.
I might be wrong.
Did I put it's possible I put the wrong number. This is part. Okay, I think it's part 3. That's why I put in the chat. But okay, whatever. It's part something. Yeah. I think it's 3. It must be 3. Wait.
I think it's 3.
Yeah, part 3. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So part 3 of the David Guttman's essay on the Rambam's view of Hashgachah. Last time we went through the 5 views of Hashgachah, right? So just really quickly, because we're not going to focus on that this time. We went through all 5. Yeah, we went through the Atomists who are adamant about the denial of there's no design whatsoever. What was that? Oh yes, thank you. The chart. Chart. Oh wow, that's the first chart that comes up. Okay, must be the last one we did. Yeah, there we go. We had the Atomists. We didn't go through all 5. No, you're right. We didn't go through the Rambams. Yeah, right. We did go through 5, just not the 5. Yeah. So the Atomists are. Oh wait, am I not sharing the screen? Hold on. Share the whole screen. Okay. So we have the Atomists who hold that there's no such thing as any design, right? In the universe, and everything's just random. Okay. So they affirm free will, or we have no reason to believe that they deny free will, but they don't hold that God's will, God has any will, or that God is just. There's just no design whatsoever. Okay. Then you've got Aristotle, whose Shitah was that anything that follows patterns is Hashgachah, or Hashgachah, that it perpetuates itself, and that is the motion of the heavenly bodies and the existence of species. Okay. But he holds that only extends to the things like above the earth, or the permanent things on the earth. But individuals are not subject to Hashgachah, right? So the cat that eats the mouse, or the fly that gets trapped by the spider, or the shul that crashes, or the dung that goes on the ants, that's all, or the navi that gets eaten by a lion. Yeah, I was gonna say the navi that gets eaten by a prophet. That would also be bad, but yeah. He holds his total chance. Okay, so he holds by free will because he wrote books on ethics. He does not hold that God wills, even though he holds by God, but he holds that God is eternal and everything is just an outgrowth of God's existence. And then for justice, he holds that there is an idea of justice in universals, in the permanent things, and that they all exist in perfect harmony with continuity and perpetuity, but there's nothing for individuals. Yeah.
I was going to say that just because you have a system of ethics doesn't necessarily mean that you're held by free will. I'm not saying he did it, but I just don't think that's a right in general.
Okay.
So I know like Nietzsche did not hold by free will at all, but he wrote a whole book on morality, on the genealogy of morals.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that's possible to hold, but yeah, you can. There's a quote. Hold on a second. There's a good quote. I'm just trying to.
The only response to your
I think it was about subjectivism or relativism.
Okay.
And I think Mortimer Adler said something like, you can't convince a relativist that he is of objective reality, but you can convince an honest man that he's not a relativist. Something like that. Yeah, so like I think it's the thing like here, yeah. I believe that you believe you don't hold by free will, but I don't think that you actually don't hold by free will, And the very fact that we're having this discussion means that, yeah, very fine. All right, the Ashariya, there's no ayin in there, but the Asharites, they're the ones who hold. They put all the chips on God's will, right? They don't hold by free will. They hold that God's will controls every single particular, and they don't even hold that God is just. And with that, the way it expresses itself is they hold that God can not reward you when you do a mitzvah, or he can punish you for, even though you didn't have, you could punish you for whatever reason. The Mutazilites hold by free will and by God's will and by God's justice, but they have certain, but they have certain incongruities, right? For example, they hold that there's reward and punishment for animals, right? And then what was the other thing that the Rambam objected to?
I don't remember the term he used, but like getting star ownership before you actually do.
Oh yeah, right. Exactly, yeah. Yisurin shel ava, right? Is preemptive. You afflict a tzaddik to give him reward in the future. Yeah.
What do you mean when you say free will?
Ability to choose. Okay, next question. Yeah. No, that's we're not going into free will except insofar as is needed for this for this topic. And so far, the only thing he's brought in free will for is being able to do mitzvos and averos and get punished or rewarded. Yeah, so that's all we've seen.
I guess I was just trying to figure out, is determinism incompatible or compatible?
Determinism, I don't even think he is addressing that yet. Yeah, I think he will, though. I think he will. Okay, and then the last opinion, which the Rambam didn't talk about, was the Garden of Emunah, who they don't hold by free will. They only hold by apparent free will, and they hold that God wills everything and that God is perfectly just. Okay, fine. All right, so, but we are setting all that aside now, because what we're doing today is a crash course in Aristotelian premises. Okay, so this is, what page are we on here? Oh, here we go. Page 127. Introductions to the Rambam's opinion. Okay. And what we're going to do here is we're going to supplement this. We're going to read what he says, but I'm going to supplement it with a little bit of stuff that I've used in my Issue of classes when I taught these prakim. Okay, so before proceeding to discuss Rambam's own opinion, we have to define certain terms and concepts that will be used in the upcoming discussion. Looking at the presentation in the Mor Nevuchim of the chapters on Providence, we find that after discussing Yechezkel's vision of the chariot, Rambam first clarifies the concept of chomer and tsura, matter and form. Footnote 29. Okay, fine. He then discusses whether non-being is the direct result of an action or just accidental. For example, is darkness a separate entity that can be created, or is it just the lack of light? Understanding this helps us to define good and evil, as we shall see. He then dedicates 2 chapters each to good and evil as it applies to man and society and his environment, and a discussion of the purpose of material existence. Another chapter deals with divine omnipotence and its limitations, followed by an introductory chapter regarding God's omniscience. Only after these preparatory chapters does he discuss providence. Rambam is setting the tone for the upcoming discussion, making sure that we come to it with the proper perspective. Let me just point out a rookie YBT yeshiva guy mistake. I don't know if any of you have made this mistake before, but I know I made this mistake when I was first learning about Hashgachah. Is you go to the Rambam, you're like, I want to learn the Rambam's Shitah on Hashgachah. So you open the Mor Nevuchim, you look from the table of contents, and then you're like, oh, there's a chapter called the Rambam's Shitah on Hashgachah, and then you read that chapter, right? So that's failing to recognize that the Rambam sets up all of these things. Oh, sorry, you read that chapter, and then you skip all of these things, and you go to the Rambam talking about Hashgachah. Like, the Rambam talks about these seemingly unrelated topics because they're premises that you could only fully understand his idea of Hashgachah once you understand these things, you know? So, and the Rambam says this in the Mor Nevuchim in the very beginning in his letter to Rav Yosef Ibn Aknin, who he's writing it for, is, I think it's Ibn Aknin, I think, that he says, I want you to encounter the truth in its proper order so that, otherwise, if you encounter ideas out of sequence, then they can lodge in your mind in the wrong way. Excuse me, in the wrong way. Okay. Ready for matter and form. Who wants to try on their own explaining what matter and form is?
Nope. I mean, no, I don't want to. I'll let the Roman do it.
Okay. Anyone?
I mean, matter is like physical extension, meaning it's matter, stuff that takes up space.
Okay.
Right, and form is their Platonic or Aristotelian, like the form of the thing, like the thing that you.
Abstract concept.
Yeah.
Okay. I hear. Yeah.
So matter is, I guess, the physical and formless part of it is what you see.
What you see.
And that,
So it's interesting you should use that phrase.
Yeah.
What do you mean by what you see?
This is there like all the atoms arranged into this book.
Okay, I see what you're trying to get at. Okay.
I don't think so. It's the form connection, which I guess you take that and process the form of book.
Okay.
The collective of that. Yeah.
Okay, so you know what? Because of that, I'm actually going to go with my presentation of form and matter before Guttman's, because I think it's slightly clearer because I was doing it for high schoolers. And it's not that long. Okay, so the reason why I reacted to your use of the word see is because the Rambam starts off his discussion of form and matter by saying in Hilchos Yesod Torah 4:7, you will never see anything which is matter without form or form without matter, right? Meaning everything we actually perceive is the combo of form and matter. We can never perceive one without the other, but it is man's rationality which enables him to divide the entity in his mind and know that it is composed of form and matter. Okay, so everything we encounter is form and matter. Okay, so here is a bunch of synonyms for form. Okay, form or definitions for tsura. Okay, form. structure, design, that which the thing is. Matter, Homer is matter, material, that which the thing is made of. Okay, now these are really just two out of the Aristotelian 4 causes. Okay, so Aristotle has 4 causes. You probably heard about this before. The material cause, which is what the thing is made out of. The formal cause, what it's made into. The efficient cause, what makes it into that thing. And the final cause is what it's made for. Okay, and so for example, the material cause of a shoe, my shoes at least, I don't know, your shoes, leather, right? The formal cause of a shoe is, now this is, the formal cause is the trickiest one to have. It's its shape, but it's not really its shape because shoes can be shaped differently. It's its shoeness. Okay, now shoeness does have to have a certain shape, but it's that which makes the thing a shoe. Okay, we'll elaborate on this in a second. The efficient cause of the shoe is the shoemaker or the machine that assembles the leather into the shoe. And then the final cause is to provide comfort and protection for the feet while walking or whatever. Okay, why are these things called causes, by the way?
They're each answers to, like, you can say why and then answer it with any of these, basically.
Oh, well, why is only the final cause?
There's different ways.
Why is what is it for?
Each of them define what thing is.
Okay, but why cause though?
Well, in that the final product is the effect of the.
Yes, right. You can't have the thing, you can't have this shoe without leather. If you had no leather, you would not have this shoe. You couldn't have this shoe without the concept of shoe. You would just have a lump of leather, right? You couldn't have the shoe without something that made the leather into the shape. And you couldn't have a shoe if the shoes wouldn't exist if there were no purpose for shoes, right? So that's why it's cause. Okay, a few more examples. Oops, sorry. Oh, yes, I'm still consistently drinking the same brand of water as I did when I made the PowerPoint, right? Poland Springs, there's a thing I did in high school where any idea I would illustrate with a water bottle, I would try. So, because I always had a water bottle on me. So plastic, right, is the Poland Springs water bottle. Formal cause is its bottleness. Efficient cause is the bottle making machine, right? And then the final cause is to hold water. Yeah.
Is the efficient cause like the one step before the thing that caused it to be made, or is it all the causes going back?
It's all the causes. You can have multi-layered efficient causes. Okay, fine. A couple more examples.
You can have multi-layered material causes.
Yeah, multiple materials, correct. Yeah. Yeah. So for example, clock, right? So plastic, metal, the paint, whatever you have, right? Formal cause is its face, its numbers, and hands. So this is a good example of like what we mean by, I guess this is an analog clock, strictly speaking, right? So there, it's not the shape of the thing, right? What makes a clock a clock? It has to have certain elements. You know, if you just have a disc with numbers, that's not a clock. Characteristics, yeah, right. Right, but that's only because you fill in the numbers with your mind. Yeah, yeah.
Why can't it be something without a final cause?
So this is the machlokas between modern science and Aristotelian science. Is that Aristotle attached the concept of final cause to all things except God and the universe, which we'll get into in the later chapters and more. We would say, though, that final causes are only in things that are made by intelligent agents. So definitely all kalim, like all tools, have final causes. And then it depends on how far you want to go with the mashal of the universe, because we do use the mashal of malacha to talk about the universe. We talk about God's final cause in making the universe, but again, we're going to get to that in the more in the book. So strictly speaking, you're right, is like things that exist in nature. For us, it's a foreign concept to say that there's a final cause there. Yeah.
Doesn't that mean that we're positing that there's a lawlessness to God's creation? Non-reason to God's creation?
So this is why, because if we said that there's no final cause for it, then that would be like arbitrary.
Yeah. In a sense, yeah.
Yeah. So that's why one of the prefatory chapters, interestingly, not one of the chapters Rambam goes into in order to explain this, but to explain mitzvos. He says how God's actions are not arbitrary and says that they all have reasons. And he does extend it to the creation, but he doesn't do it here. I don't know why. Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, Joseph?
Is God's primary reason part of his essence?
That's part of the problem. Yeah, that's what we get into when we talk about the chapter about why God created the universe. So we'll get to that. Yeah. Okay. And then, so this is why I chose this example of a natural thing, right? So this is actually a better answer than what I just gave you. Okay. So heart. Okay. So what is it made out of? Cardiac muscle. Okay. Whatever. I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah. Formal cause of a heart is its its shape, which is really the 4 chambers consisting of 2 atria and 2 ventricles. Definition of heart. Debatable whether like you can have a heart that is different than that, because like whatever.
Isn't it just
Human heart, human heart.
Yeah, human heart. Yeah.
Isn't it just like its hardness or?
Yeah, it is its hardness, right? But this is the tricky thing
Yeah.
about formal cause, because sometimes you can articulate it. Sometimes you can. Ultimately, you can't articulate the real essence of it. The efficient
It's
cause.
the thing which makes the heart and not something else.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, fine.
So efficient cause of a heart, you can say, is the DNA that programs the body to develop that thing, right?
Or could you say it's also like the developmental process that?
Yeah, the processes, exactly. Yeah. And the final cause of heart. So this is a good example, to pump blood throughout the body. So you can look at a thing in nature and see what it is doing within its system and call that the final cause, So I think that is an idea that we still do have, Okay. So now I'm going to read. So there's a book called The Hungry Soul by, is it by Leon Kass? Yeah, it's by Leon Kass. Okay. So this is a guy who is a bioethicist. Okay. He's got like a bunch of degrees in biology and in philosophy. And he wrote a book called The Hungry Soul, which is teaching about the modern day relevance of Aristotle's ideas of form and matter through the processes of eating and metabolism. It's an interesting book. Okay. Yeah, Michael?
I'm trying to understand how the final cause is different from the formal cause. Meaning, like, if clock is really more like, you can't say a specific shape because there are ones with different numbers versus nothing. So it seems like you have to look at its cause. Its final cause is what I'm saying, to convey time.
Yeah. So this is one of the things that I also find slippery, which is that in man-made objects, then there's a close relationship, for lack of a better term, between the final cause and the formal cause, because it's so much tied to the function of the thing. Like a pen, because it's a device, a handheld device used for writing, then there's going to be if you think, what is the formal cause of pens, of all pens, is that they are hand-holdable and they have something that emits an ink type thing, so that's its penness. Its penness is its ability to write, and its formal cause is writing, whereas in nature, it's not, not so simple. Yeah. Yeah, Oren?
Why can't you just say its ability to write? Like, why'd you limit it to things about the object and not just its ability to write?
For the formal cause?
Yeah. You said when you were talking about what the formal cause of the pen was,
Yeah.
you said its ability to be handheld and
Well,
or
'cause-
not its ability, the fact that it is handheld and the fact that it does emit ink. Why not just say its ability to write with?
Because I thought I was being more precise.
That's more precise.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I think it does need both of them, because there's lots of things that emit ink, like a printer emits ink, but is not a pen.
Sure, but what I'm more trying to get at there is that you wouldn't say that saying, its ability to do X that's still like an eligible answer, perhaps.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very hard to articulate the formal cause. Okay.
I think it sounds different when you approach it from the formal cause angle. If you were to use the final cause language, it would be a writing thing.
Yeah.
But from the formal cause, you're saying the structure of a thing designed for the utility of writing.
Yeah. It becomes very cumbersome. Yeah. Okay. So
She was a very good example, though.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, so I want to read this excerpt from Kass, and he has very long sentences, but we'll try to make sense of it. And the reason why I like this is because he does talk about in nature. Okay, every tangible object or being, whether of natural origin or made by human beings, both is something and is made out of something. Okay, provisionally, let us call the latter its material, and the former its form. Now he uses the word material instead of matter because he differentiates between the two, which he'll explain in a second. Okay. Form and material are, in the first instance, relative and correlative terms. Form is the something made of certain materials. Materials, another alarm. What are all these alarms? I don't usually set alarms for myself at night. Okay. Anyway, form is the something made of certain materials. Materials are, as materials of and for the thing as formed. Okay, meaning that the way I would say this is like, in the same way as you can't define part without reference to a concept of a whole, or whole without reference to a concept of a part, in any real thing, its form and its matter are going to be like definable in terms of their relation to each other. Okay, and that's like the Rambam saying, you never see form without matter, matter without form. Yeah. Say again? They're dependent on each other. Yeah. unlike Plato, who held that forms exist in their own realm. Aristotle does not hold that. That's why when he said Platonic or Aristotelian, that's like one of the big machlokes in. Right. Yeah. In fact, to be material means to be potential, to be able to receive a certain form or forms, to be capable of being worked on by some process or operation that would transform it, that is, form it into that something whose material it then becomes. Okay, so best example really is a lump of clay.
Yeah.
Okay, right? Best material ever, right? If you take a lump of clay, you can make it into a bird, or you can make it into an apple, right? But the thing is like, it is potentiality when it's material, but once you actualize its potential in a certain form, you're also limiting what it can become. It can't be, or maybe a better example, because clay you can always remold. Yeah. Lump of iron. Okay, that's a good one. I'm going to go with a table. Okay, so let's say you have like pieces of wood that just piles of wood. So that's just material. You make it into a table, but then insofar as you have actualized this form in that material, it can't simultaneously be a doghouse. Now you can deconstruct it and reduce it to its potentiality again, and then actualize it as a doghouse, but it can't be both. So material is on the potential side of the spectrum, and form is on the actual side of the spectrum. Okay, wood. Oh, now he's going to go into a hierarchy. There's a hierarchy of forms. Okay, wood is by itself just wood. Marble is marble. Cholesterol is cholesterol. But marble becomes also material for Michelangelo only because and when its capacity to be the marble David or Moses is realized through the workings of the sculptor's hand. And cholesterol becomes material for a cholesterol-requiring organism when its capacity to interact intimately with other membrane materials is realized as it is incorporated by the organism as a component of its living cell membrane, obviously. Okay, yeah. The first example was easier to understand. Without ceasing altogether to be or to manifest properties of marble or cholesterol, these things are transformed and altered by their subordination to the activity of information. This is the profound point now. The materials, though following their own nature, are at the same time constrained by their new arrangements, which constitute a nature of a higher order. So let's take the marble example, right? When you have a block of marble and you carve it into the David, so you're not changing it still is marble, right? Yet somehow it's different. Wherein lies that difference? Its shape, its like orientation. Well, it's now part of something that is bigger than itself, Or better example, when you have those pieces of wood that you arrange into a table, what's interesting is you didn't add anything and you didn't take anything away, yet the whole is greater than some of its parts. Yeah.
I would say that, I guess that works into the Aristotelian causes is that the difference now is its efficient cause. That by interaction by being acted upon by the efficient cause, it now partakes of a different reality.
Right, but the thing that makes it different though is its formal cause, because you can act on it with an efficient cause. You can have efficient causes.
No, because the formal cause I'm sorry, no, that's material. Never mind. Right.
Efficient causes can't act without formal causes. Otherwise, it would just be like kicking things. Yeah, Isaiah.
In terms of the wood or the marble or the lump of clay, how would you go about defining the final cause of those things?
It could be of various things, right? So like the final cause of Michelangelo, or not Michelangelo, of the David, right? Is it's an object of art.
Well, not those things.
Oh yeah.
The wood or the.
The wood itself.
The wood itself.
Right.
Means the material.
Correct.
How
Yeah.
can it have a final cause?
Right. So that
something else.
Yeah. Right. Meaning like it did have a final cause, which was to perpetuate its species. Right. And then we cut it down and use it as for man's final causes. Yeah.
When he says a nature of a higher order, that's not trying to confer like a value. Right?
No, it's a level of abstraction, and this is what he's going to say next. I think. Yeah. Here we go. Wait. No, not next. Oh yeah, he'll get to that in a second. Form and material are interdependent not only in definition, but usually also in fact. Though distinct as ideas and separable in speech, they are, especially in living things, grown together in the enmattered form or the informed matter that is the given thing. The dog and its flesh, the oak and its roots, no less than the desk and its wood, are as inseparable, related, and mutually interdependent as the concave and the convex. I was going to say, if you try to separate the dog from its flesh, you get a real mess. Okay, like you can only do that in your mind, but you never see dogness outside of an enfleshed dog, right? And you never see dog flesh well, maybe in certain Chinese marketplaces, but but then whatever. But you know what I mean, right? It's then at that point, it's yeah, right. It's not a living dog, right? Yeah. And the concave and convex is a good example of that also, right? Is that whenever you have something concave, the convex and the concave coexist, and you can't have one without the other. Yeah. The relativity and interdependence of material and form persist also at multiple levels of organization. This is what you were asking about. The oak wood that is material for the table itself is a special form, say, of xylem and phloem, which are in turn special formations of cells, which are special formations of carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins, and so on and so on. At the lowest level, some least or ultimate material would be reached, if any such there be, that could not be analyzed further into its form and material, and whose parts, if it had parts, would be homogeneous with the whole. We did the Zoom thing in one of the things that was the quantum foam or string, right? That's ultimate matter, right? Yeah. Such an ultimate material would be more than material relative to some other form. It would be matter. Okay, yeah. I think I have a good, better example of this. Yeah, Michael?
It's just like he's saying forms all the way down.
Yeah. Yeah. Hold on. Ladder.
Not the bottom. The bottom isn't just stuff.
There we go.
What's the form of matter? Wait, but it's not. What the hell?
Well, the material, he's basically like discussing hillic matter, right? Like pure, unformed matter.
Yeah, correct. Okay, you can see this right on the screen. The cow, right? I'm sharing this. No, okay, I'm not. Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to confirm. All right, so let me share the whole screen and just keep it that way. Okay. Yeah. Actually, I'm going to go through this first. This will just clarify what we just did. Okay, so this is from S.I. Haikau, who was like a linguist, philosopher of language, something like that. So he says like this. This is the Haikau ladder of abstraction. All right, so you have level 1, the cow. The cow known to science ultimately consists of atoms, electrons, etc., according to the present-day scientific inference. Characteristics represented by circles are infinite at this level and ever-changing. This is the process level. Okay, well, forget his you don't have to get bogged down in his terminology.
Infinite potentiality.
Yeah, the atoms that make up the cow. Okay,
A lot.
higher level.
Not a,
The cow we perceive is not the word, but the object of experience, that which our nervous system abstracts or selects from the totality that constitutes the process cow. Many of the characteristics of the process cow are left out. So there is this objective process of all these things, but when we perceive the cow, we're not seeing any of the subatomic particles. We're not seeing any of we're just, seeing whatever, like fill in the physics blanks. Okay. All right. Bessie. The word Bessie, okay, cow 1, is the name we give to the object of perception of level 2. The name is not the object. It merely stands for the object and omits reference to many of the characteristics of the object. So that's a higher level, okay? Next is cow. The word cow stands for the characteristics we have abstracted as common to cow 1, cow 2, cow 3, cow n. Characteristics peculiar to specific cows are left out. So that would be like the form of cow, okay, right? 5, livestock. When Bessie is referred to as livestock, only those characteristics she has in common with pigs, chickens, goats, etc., are referred to. So that's a higher level of abstraction, because so the higher level levels of abstraction are defined by how many particulars they encompass. So the higher levels of abstraction treat other things, like Bessie was one cow, and
they're all categories.
Yeah, and Sally was another cow, and whatever, Henry was an ox, right? But then you go, well, I guess you can't do cow. Then you abstract one thing, cow, from all of them, and then you take cows, pigs, and goats, livestock, Then you go farm assets. When Bessie is included among farm assets, reference is made only to what she has in common with all other salable items on the farm. Then asset, I don't want to spoil the last one. When Bessie is referred to as an asset, still more of her characteristics are left out. And then wealth. The word wealth is at an extremely high level of abstraction, omitting almost all references to the characteristics of Bessie, but you obviously go higher, right? So in form and matter, then what do you call it? Then each thing, like you can have in our example of the table. So the wood is material for the table, but this table plus that table plus this chair are materials in furnishings, and furnishings plus walls plus bookshelves is material in terms of house, and how, and you can go up and up and up. Yeah, Michael.
In terms of his description of how Bessie is technically representative in the word wealth,
Yeah.
in like a deep level of awareness, that reminds me very much of like The Little Prince, where he asks him to draw a sheep. So and he keeps refusing, so he draws the box and says the sheep is in
Right.
there.
Yeah. Good book, Little Prince. Okay. Okay. Last part of the excerpt here. If material is material relative to form, what then is a form? This is the big question, right? That's hard to explain. Yeah.
If when we talk about cow, though, what we're referring to is I don't know, biological stuff that makes a cow a cow. And then if we're talking about that, then really we're talking about cells. And if we're talking about cells, then really
no. That's the
how
key.
can I ever talk about cows?
That's the key point.
It'll always just progress.
Because each one is a higher level of abstraction. You'll see this
How
here.
does it not like break down? Like when I say cow, what I'm referring to is that biological mass.
No, you're
When I
not.
refer to that, I'm referring to cells.
No, you're not.
Why
No, that's the
not?
thing. Because that would be denying form. That would just be treating everything as matter.
Sure. Okay.
That's not reading the form.
So let's read his definition of form. Form is often connected with shape and figure, but when we think of form with regard to living beings, we mean more than shape or figure, and more than an aggregate of corporeal parts. A pile of rocks has shape but not form. It is a heap, not a whole. Now, this is the best definition. Form is what makes a being a unity and a whole in the world and through time. Form is that order or ordering that makes a one of the many components, giving it an integrity the components by themselves do not have. It is, I confess, extremely difficult to say what this unifier is, if it is a distinct what. It cannot be outside the outside surface or skin, although the boundary defines the limits of the organism against everything that it is not. It does not define what it is. And that's like a wacky concept, right? Like think about yourself, or the dog if you don't want to think about yourself. The skin of the dog doesn't define the dog, but it does separate it from everything else that it is. It's more of he says, the boundary is not the cause of unity, but rather one of its manifestations. We begin to suspect that form is not primarily something visible or tangible. In short, that there is, in this sense, some immaterial thing that unites and informs the absolutely corporealized organism, but what it is we cannot define. Yet we may continue to discern its meaning and its work. And again, if you think about dogs that eat and dogs that die, then you see this in a really good example, right? So you have a dog that eats dog food, right? Or if you eat an apple, what's happening? So you're taking, let's talk about you. You take an apple. So there's apple matter, right? It's got, fructose and some proteins and fiber, right? And you eat it. And what happens when you eat it is that same matter is metabolized and becomes you. It literally becomes you, So it's the same matter, but it becomes transformed into like whatever, the calcium becomes your bones, whatever, like however nutrition works, I don't know nutrition. I read the book a long time ago. Yeah. Right. But the excess sugar, whatever that your body doesn't burn off is stored as fat, Yeah. Right. So it becomes you. And then what happens when you die? So that's the interesting thing is as you're walking around, your form is what makes you a unity and a whole in the world and through time. But when you die, what happens is you decompose. So whatever it was that was giving you this integrity that is somehow connected to your life, and this is what the Rambam calls neshama, not nefesh, which we might have to get into, like that was your biological form. And the proof that it exists is that when you die, you just start to disintegrate. And that doesn't happen to living dogs. You don't just disintegrate, Yeah, Isaiah?
I don't get why he's saying a pile of rocks is not a form.
Because a pile of rocks is just individual things.
It's not though, because if I eventually I can destroy a pile of rocks, if I take away a pile of rocks, I buy a pile of rocks,
Well, if you're buying a pile of rocks, then you could argue that it might be a form. If it's a thing that could be that you're treating as an entity,
I feel like you're not being abstract enough when you're trying to think of what a pile of rocks is. There's something that's relating all those rocks to each other and saying this is
That's
a pile
true,
of rocks.
right? That's true, right? But the thing is like, where do you who watches Seinfeld here? Anyone? Yeah, right. So George Costanza's svara about why you're allowed to litter in New York. He says it better than I can, but when you walk to a garbage can and there's a pile of garbage and you throw something on top of it, you are throwing it away. New York is just one big pile of garbage, So when you throw something on the ground, it's basically throwing it on the garbage, So when you isolate that pile of rocks, I mean, really all rocks on Earth are just one pile of rocks. It's just that you happen to be closer to this one, you know. So like, so I maybe that's what the point that you were making is that like you are isolating in one sense. That's true. It's a loose analogy, you know. Yeah. Okay. So, but this definition of form, I think, is the clearest definition. But again, you can see it's just very hard to think about. That it's what makes a thing being a unity and a whole in the world and through time. Form is that order or ordering that makes a one of the many components, giving an integrity the components by themselves do not have. That's why I think I like the word design or structure as a synonym for form, but it doesn't fully capture it either because things can have different structures. Yeah.
I think a way that we just perceive form, I guess, would be the amount of potential it has to become something. So the less it has, the more of a form it would be.
Correct. Yeah. That's a good description and a litmus test. Right.
Yeah, actualizing into a form.
Yeah.
Obviously, brick of marble is still a form.
Right.
But since it can be made into many things,
yeah.
Once it's a statue, now you can't really use it.
Right. Correct. Yeah. Yeah. I'd say those are more characteristics of form and matter than definitions. But yeah, the more
No, that's what you're saying with there are two sides.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. Yeah, Oren?
Okay, when we're talking about form, are we saying that it is something which like literally ontologically exists, that it's like that you can study and whatever, or is it just like a useful tool to talk about or to talk with?
This is part of the problem in what we're going to be learning.
What does that mean?
Meaning that I don't know what Aristotle held. I have thought I've known at various parts, and I don't know if it matters. Yeah. For example, I'll give you an example, problematic example. We talked about this one other time. Aristotle held that species are permanent, and that the form of cow is like an objective existing thing in the universe that like reiterates itself through generations of cows, right? We now know that there's no such thing as species like that are objective existences. It's just like things evolve, you know? So does that like, what do we make of that in terms of his ideas of forms? This is difficult.
So it sounds like it's just a tool then.
It sounds like that, but I wouldn't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Like,
well, I'm not saying we can't use it.
No. I wouldn't say like that might, like, for example, just because Aristotle was wrong when it came to biological species doesn't mean that he's wrong when it comes to Tselem Elohim or math or you know, physics, like laws of physics. I don't know. Yeah, it's very, yeah.
Or even if there were no cows, you could still say a form of cow existed. But just, I think it's something else I've heard where the evolution, it's something where you tend to have bigger jumps as opposed to small changes.
Yeah.
Part of me wonders if that could be that the forms of all these animals exist, and it's just the material has to choose between some of them, so it'll jump between different forms.
All right, so let's go on in this. All right, so now that we have our background here, then we'll read Guttman's shorter explanation of this, and then we'll see in the Rambam where this goes. Okay, the concept of matter and form in Aristotelian physics is foreign to our contemporary understanding of science. I'll say it was a way of explaining how the non-physical idea or concept interacts with the physical world. It visualized everything material as composed of a physical entity and the concept behind it. See, he's saying the way that you're saying it, Oren, is that it's just a concept, right? It exists only in the mind. The example used is a table where the artisan who has the picture of the final product in his mind takes a formless piece of wood and molds it into its final form. The picture in his mind is the form which somehow is now actualized in the final object. My favorite way to say this, I first heard this from Rabbi Sachs. I don't know if this is like a known thing, that they asked Michelangelo, like, how on earth did you sculpt the David, you know? And he said, well, I took a block of marble, I took my chisel, and I hit away everything that didn't look like the David, you know? And that's really what he's doing is he's taking he sees the form in the raw material. That's what a true artist does. And then just makes that into the thing, you know, but like, if only it were that easy. Yeah. Looked at relatively, matter is controlled by form. Matter will not change without form acting on it. In fact, it will not exist without form or concept preceding its existence, right? So the shoe example, I think, comes back as an easy thing. If you didn't have the concept of shoe, I don't care how much you work with that leather, you're never going to get a shoe out of it, right? You need the concept of shoe in order to make the material into shoe.
this is, I think it's Plato or Socrates, I think he holds that you have knowledge before you like, all of that kind of thing.
Socrates.
Socrates, yeah, Plato, Socrates, yeah.
How about class today?
Yeah, Michael?
Wouldn't the concept be the final causal?
Even within like an atomist world, like let's say that quantum particles are the underlying building blocks of all of reality. That would also be a form.
Well, here's the thing, is that if you got down to the ultimate matter, then that matter wouldn't have form.
But then wouldn't you call it something?
There's
Meaning it's a sideways attack. It doesn't make sense.
Okay,
to say.
there are 4 pages in Adler's book, Aristotle for Everybody, that addresses this. If you remind me, then I'll show you what he says on it. Okay, I'm pretty sure it's 4 pages. Yeah, I don't want to get sidetracked. Yeah, Joseph?
So, like, why you have to say there's an inherent distinction?
Between matter and form?
Yeah.
That's how we see things. Why do you have to say there's a distinction between essence and accident?
Okay.
Because that's how we see things. You know, I think we see, like, I can see that there can be a folder made out of paper and a folder made out of leather, and my mind sees that both of them have the form of a folder but different matter.
No, different forms, was like the paper and leather themselves their own form. So then the paper and leather themselves form.
Right, and that could go all the way down and go all the way up. Yeah.
Doesn't just say there's just. And actually, I guess actually, just thinking, I just put form matter as relative terms.
Yeah, which is what we were saying. Yeah, Isaiah.
Why does it say matter will not change without form acting on it? Isn't it really that some external force will come and matter and form will change at the same time when an external force?
Yeah, so it is a little weird. The way he's speaking about form acting on matter is like omitting the efficient cause, because efficient cause is really what acts on the matter to inform it, to transform it. I mean, you know, so I don't know why. I don't know if he's using this lashon because that's how Aristotle uses it. But if you only had 2 of them, matter and form, it would be proper to say that the form is acting on the matter.
Yeah.
Okay. And he'll give a mashal in a second. That is the Rambam's mashal. Form will not be actualized without interacting with matter. They're always interdependent. 36. Okay. No, we don't need to do 36. Okay, fine. Matter also has the propensity to change. It takes on a certain form, and with time, it starts to deteriorate, returning to its original, and is now ready to receive a different form. So I referenced this earlier, but that's like the circle of life of the Lion King in the Mufasa speech, right? Is that the lions eat the antelope, right? So they're taking the antelope matter and metabolizing it, and it becomes lion. Then the lion dies, and its matter becomes the soil, and then the soil gives nutrients to the grass, and then the antelope eat the grass, and the antelope, and circle of life, right? So it's the same matter that is going from states of actuality to states of potentiality and different states of actuality in a cycle. Yeah.
Is the deterioration under an idea of entropy or separate?
What do you mean by under an idea of entropy?
Meaning that you have things breaking down.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Things is to break down.
Correct. Yeah.
But then it's adding on that it also has a propensity to then be built.
Right. So that is, I think, does he use the harlot?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we'll read that. Which footnote?
No, 38.
Oh, 30. Okay. Good. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect timing. Rambam understands this concept of matter as is represented metaphorically as a promiscuous woman who always pursues different men. So I don't think this is a good. I think promiscuous wife is a better translation. Oh, fine. Okay. Who always pursues different men and constantly seeks out new companions. So this is a quote from the Rambam, Moreh Nevuchim 3:8. How extraordinary is what Shlomo HaMelech said in his wisdom when likening matter to a married harlot. Yeah, that's it, right? For matter is never found without form, and is therefore always like a woman who is never separated from a man and is never free. However, though being wedded, constantly seeks another man in place of her husband. She entices and attracts him in every possible manner until he obtains from her what her husband used to obtain. The same is the case with matter. Whatever form it has, it is disposed to receive another form. It leaves off moving and casting off the form which it has in order to receive another. The same takes place when this second form is received. Right. So going back to what Sean was saying, let's take the apple, right? So you have the apple that is matter in a certain form. Now, 2 things can happen to the apple. It could either rot or it could get eaten, right? Yeah, so the rotting is entropy taking its place. And you can think of it, again, it helps to personify these things. That's why Shlomo personified them as the form of apple desperately wants to cling on to that matter. But what happens is matter pulls away from it and becomes something else, becomes non-apple, and that's the process of the apple deteriorating. And it's not just becoming something else in free floating form, it's becoming soil, or it's becoming, or applesauce, or like it's as it goes away from one form, it takes on another form. But then it doesn't stay with that form. It takes on another form and another form, so it's constantly going from one form to the other. So we call that process entropy. And entropy is relative, that it's deteriorating from being embodied in this form, but it's becoming something else. And it is a property of matter. That's how we say it, at least. Yeah. And by the way, remember, this is only one side of the mashal, right? Because this is the Ashes, this is the harlot, but then the Ashes chayil, according to the Rambam, is the mashal for matter that is well suited to its form and enhances the form. That's not how I learned Ashes chayil, but that's how the Rambam learns Ashes chayil. Yeah. Okay. The two women of Mishlei. Okay. All right. If a concept is perpetual, therefore form, which represents the concept of a thing, is also perpetual. It is true that without matter, it is not actualized. However, it is the lack of matter which is the cause of this, not form itself. Okay, I'll give you an example of this. It's complicated right now, but let's just read the Rambam. Do you not see that all specific forms are perpetual and permanent? Form can only be destroyed accidentally, i.e. on account of its connection with matter. Okay, here's the easy example. The form of this building here is its design, okay, which is represented on a blueprint, right? The blueprint isn't the design, but it's a representation of the design. Design really exists in the architect's mind. Now, there's a design of the building, and that is then when the building is built, that design is embodied in the matter that makes up the building. Now, over time, what's going to happen? The building will deteriorate, right? So the bricks will crumble, the wood will rot, etc., right? But what is deteriorating? The form or the matter? The matter, right? I mean, the thing is deteriorating, but the thing is deteriorating because of its matter. The design never changes. The design is permanent and perpetual. It's just the matter that was embodying that design, which is separating from that design. Yeah.
And like he says, the only loss that the form gets is the relationship to the matter.
Mm-hmm. Right. The form itself, it doesn't change, but it's losing its relationship. Correct. Yeah.
Why does he say it's perpetual? It sounds like it was still created at some point.
Perpetual. So it's a good question also, and this gets into complications of what does it mean when a human being designs something,
Sure.
But it's perpetual in the sense that it is everlasting, not necessarily eternal.
Nobody knows about the building anymore.
It could still be retrieved.
Would that be the same form though?
Yes, it would be.
Why?
In the same sense that any right triangle of a certain proportion is the same right triangle. The concept, you can't, like, let's say, okay, I'll take it, a 4x4 inch square. So that form, you can't have two forms of 4x4 inch square. It's the same idea.
But
you can have different embodiments of it.
Right.
If this place got whatever, got destroyed, and then 1,000 years from now, right?
Yeah.
Somebody built a new yeshiva
Right.
called the Issue of Natora, and
Right.
it's exactly the same.
Yeah.
And then they found out about this one.
Right.
Somehow they didn't already know.
Right.
Would they say that it's the same building?
No, it's not the same building, but it's the same design.
They didn't even plan it like that. It just happened.
But it is the same design. It doesn't matter what they plan on. They got lucky. It's not the same matter, yeah, and it's not the same building because that marriage of form and matter is unique. Yeah.
It's not the same yeshiva.
What was that?
It's not the same yeshiva.
Yeah. You almost made me tear Kriya just now. Yeah.
Different people, different things going on.
Right. Okay. What is the form? Okay. Now we get to the really complicated stuff. Ready for the complicated stuff? What is the form of a man? As man is part of the animal kingdom, what concept differentiates him from all other members of that category or species? Just as the relationship of form and matter in general is symbiotic and interdependent, so it is with man. For the concept or form of man to be actualized, it needs a living body, which is matter in this relationship. There is, however, a marked difference between the form of man and of other things, whether living or inert. The actualization of form in all things other than man is accomplished by finding a body, matter, for it to attach itself. The form in man, however, is only in a potential stage at the moment of attachment to a body. All the normal thought processes related to decisions that man makes is to ensure his physical survival. All functions of the brain are seen as no more than an evolved animal. Just as all animals have characteristics that help them survive in their environment, nature has given man an evolved brain to give him advantages in his environment. Okay, now we quote Rambam, and then we'll discuss it. This attribute, this is a quote from still 3, oh, no, sorry, this is from 172. This attribute has been given only to man on account of his peculiar faculty of thinking. I mean the intellect, which is the Haikau intellect, which appertains to no other living being. This may be explained as follows. An animal does not require for its sustenance any plan, thought, or scheme. Each animal moves and acts by its nature, eats as much as it can find of suitable things. It makes its resting place wherever it happens to be, cohabits with any mate it meets while in heat in the periods of its sexual excitement. In this manner, does each individual conserve itself for a certain time and perpetuates the existence of its species without requiring for its maintenance the assistance or support of any of its fellow creatures. For all the things to which it has to attend, it performs by itself. With man, it is different. If an individual had a solitary existence and were, like an animal, left without guidance, he would soon perish. He would not endure even one day, unless it were by mere chance, unless he happened to find something upon which he might feed. For the food which man requires for his subsistence demands much work and preparation, which can only be accomplished by reflection and by plan. Okay, so this seems to be introducing a new point, but just to summarize the point that the Rambam is making here. Oh, therefore, thank you. Eating, drinking, sexual intercourse, and his passionate desire for these things, as well as his anger and all bad habits found in him, are all of them consequent upon his matter. Okay, backing up for 1 second. So all other animals can just coast on their nature and on their instincts, and that will perpetuate their species. Man, though, if he tried to go without a plan, would perish, right? Unless he happened to get lucky. This is, I quoted this earlier in the, I forgot what context, but Ayn Rand has this quote. Yeah, right.
That's exactly.
Yeah, right. Man has one fundamental. Oh, sorry. There's the fundamental choice is you can either be a rational man or a suicidal animal. Oof. You know, like if man abandons rationality, he rests in the congregation of the dead, right? Like he's just not going to. He's not going to be able to survive. Whereas an animal doesn't need intellect in order to survive. Okay. He kind of made a lot of moves there. Let's just hold on. How long does this section go? Oh man. Okay. Okay. Let me just interject and say something here, just to consolidate here. So when you have an animal, there's only its biological form and its matter. Okay. And when it dies, then its form, then that marriage is broken, right? With a human being, the place where he's going to go is a human being has an animal body, right? And there is a biological form of the animal body, but then our form is going to be, our true form is going to be something different, which is going to be the Tselem Elokim, and that makes things more complicated.
That's why we make it understand we have two forms.
Yeah, in a sense, we have two forms. There's the right. There's the form of our body, and then there's the form of us as a human being.
I say we have two matters, then also.
Well, the how would I put it? The biological, the Homo sapiens, let's call it, right, okay, is the form to the matter that makes up our animal body, and the Tselem Elokim is the form that the animal body as a whole, that the animal organism is the matter to. Yeah. What's the matter?
Sure, you're saying there's one. There's one matter which has two forms.
No, it's like in a hierarchy.
Okay.
Right. It's like okay. Okay. If you have,
it's like an analysis almost.
It's say again.
In like the two, call it the form to matter.
Yeah.
It's like analogous to like
the cow.
In the way that the matter that makes up the body relates to the form of body, the body itself as matter relates to the form of that.
Yeah.
Is it like the cow? Is that what we're trying to say?
I don't know. I gotta think about that one. Yeah, that's what we're gonna have to get to next time, though. I never said this would be easy. I hope this is okay. Fine. All right. I mean, this is not for everyone. Yeah, Michael, really quick, and then we gotta stop because Rabbi Zimmer is giving shiur.
Just he's basically saying that the form of man is that thing, that plan, and he gives proof.
That's where he's gonna go. Yeah, he hasn't actually said that yet, but he's gonna go with that. Yeah. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna actually stop now because I don't want to take up Rabbi Zimmer's space. So, all right, have a good night, and we need to continue next week. Yeah, yeah.